All right, Jason Barrett, big news, big things happening. Barrettmedia.com is here. First of all, how long have you wanted to do this?
It's uh it's been a work in progress for a long time. I mean, obviously everybody knows you and the crew as well as the public since we announced it in early May, but this has been thought of for the last few years. I didn't think we would be at this point, Dave, for probably another year or two. Last year, as you know, a site that we both paid attention to, All Access, went away. Was not expecting that. When that happened, I thought somebody will come in, they'll start covering the music industry. It's too big of a industry to not cover it, right? There's over 11,000 music stations, not to mention YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all these opportunities, all these people. And I just thought somebody's going to do this. And then 6 months went by. And I'm sitting there going, nobody's really going to do this and take care of these broadcasters and cover their industry outside of day to day news. No, that's crazy. Like, there's too many people that need to have stories told, and there's too many good things happening in the business to not highlight. So, that obviously, when we got into the beginning of this year, it elevated the need to, hey, if we're going to do this, we need to start thinking about it. As you know, we had a sports summit that was first priority. Get through the top 20 for sports, do the sports summit. And literally right around that time when we were going into the sports summit, literally the night before the sports summit, I got the email that said, congratulations, the URL is yours. And just for people paying attention, like, we've wanted to own the URL barrettmedia.com for a few years. And it was just being held at a king's ransom. Finally told the guy, listen, if you could find another guy named Barrett who does media who wants this URL, knock yourself out. But we're not going to do that. It's going to have to be something that makes sense. We got to a good situation, got it, and then literally started planting the seeds from there. So the long answer is we've wanted to do it for a while. The short answer is we've publicly announced it in the beginning of May, and here we are now in the middle of July, ready to roll.
So now it's barrettmedia.com. What's new with this site? What are some areas of the site you think folks should check out?
So first, I hope everyone likes it. I think the look of this is outstanding. It feels big. I understand there are going to probably be some folks going, it's too big, right? That's always the thing when you get to a site with too much coverage. If you come on it, what I think you'll start to see, Dave, is sports fans are going to go, who are in the sports media space, they're going to go in the sports section. The news media broadcaster who cares more about news media is going to go to the news media section. Those looking at music media are going to go into the music radio section, right? And so we've got those sections built. We've also got tech now that we're covering. We've got podcasting stories that we're going to be doing. Business is another part, which we've always done media business, but it was on the Barrett News Media site. It wasn't on sports. So perfect example, and you know this because we went through this dilemma. Jeff Sotolano gets promoted at Odyssey. What site does that go on? What section does that go on? Well, now it's on the same site. It's in one section because that's a media business story. And so those things are easier. What I would encourage people to do, just dive through the site. Check out the jobs page. It's much better. Check out the ratings section. Check out, we have a brand new voices section. If you're looking for voice talent, we've got some really quality people that have done some business with us, which we appreciate. They're on the site. So there's just a lot more bells and whistles, but like anything, it'll take a little bit to get used to.
Yeah, the BSM and BNM readers were sort of on their own islands prior to this. So, how does the new site benefit them?
I'm glad you brought that up. The sports fan who's only had to worry about sports. I mean, look, you go to the New York Times, right? And if you go to the New York Times, it's got news, it's got sports, it's got food, it's got culture, it's got all these different things. The sports media broadcaster is going to go in the sports section. He's going to check, or she's going to check the radio, the television, the digital, and all those things are there. We're not really changing anything with how much content we produce. It's not like we brought this under one hood and said, okay, we'll only write 3 sports media stories now. No, we still have a flood of content. You're just probably going to look for the sports side of things. And look, let's be honest, most people don't get to the bottom of a website page anyway, right? So someone who's looking for music is going to go look for the music. They're going to go into the music radio section, get the news they want, and that's where they're going to spend the majority of their time. I don't know about you, Dave, but when I used to go to All Access, I used to go to News Talk Sports. I'd check out the job listings and I would check out the industry directory, which, by the way, we have an industry database, but this is specifically for members. So if you want access, we're going to start it a little slow because there's a lot of data entry to do, but this is going to build up and you'll have access in the future to a few thousand people across the industry, but you're not getting that access without being a member. So sports fans going to come to the sports, news is going to go to news, music to music, the person in tech to tech, and that'll be where they get the majority of their content. You know, the one important thing to convey, even though that's what you see on the site, don't forget, we have an 8 at 8 that goes out every morning to the sports industry. We have a rundown that goes out at 9 to the news industry. We just launched the Pulse, which goes out to the music radio broadcaster at 10 o'clock. And then we wrap up the day rather than doing 2 at the end of the day. I know there were some people, rightfully so, who gave us some shit about, hey, I got hit with 4 or 5 emails today. Okay, well, now we'll send out the press pass at the end of the day. It'll give you the best of sports, music, news, and a couple other things. And so people will be able to pick what they want. And on that note, they could go to the newsletter section and they could decide, which one do I want? Do I want all 4? Do I want one? And do what they want.
You mentioned some of the sections, voices, the members, and the database information. There's also sponsored posts that are there. These are all more revenue focused. So talk about why that's vital for the business.
I mean, listen, to be just blunt with people, we don't charge for content. You go around the internet, there are a lot of people these days, a lot of brands that charge you to read their content. And we've had this discussion over the last 2 years. Like, look, could we charge $5 a month and maybe lose some audience, but probably help the bottom line? Sure, we could do that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to remain free. But to make it still be free, you have to have other incentives to be able to drive revenue. I mean, at the end of the day, you and I are having a conversation. You work for the company. We have a guy recording this. He works for the company. We got a lot of people that work for the company. Well, to be able to carry that amount of personnel and to do the things we do, we have to offset it with revenue. And so, you know, when you come on the website, we right now are a pretty clean experience. You know, you're going to get a video inside the article. You're going to get a couple of ads on the site because we have some great partners that we want to take care of. But we give you an easy way to digest this content. Having sponsored content, it's like I've made this comment while we've been on some group calls. This is our sports radio station real estate show on Saturday morning, right? Sometimes you got to do certain things on Saturday morning and pay the bills, right? So we have to do some of that. On top of that, we wanted to highlight voices. I mean, you look at the voice industry, there's hundreds of people doing that kind of work. Why would we not help decision makers who are coming here looking for people to help make their brand sound better? Why not introduce them to each other? It's the same reason we have a member directory. You've got, you know, I think we've got 35 people there, and that'll grow, especially with the access to the database. We want people to go, hey, I'm looking for a talent. Where do I find them? Go to barrettmedia.com. They've got talent right on the page. You know, that there's an incentive to an individual to pay a monthly fee if they know they can increase their opportunities to grow their career, right? So we want to basically use the platform as a meeting point for everybody. And so you have to have some things to generate revenue. You have to have some ads, and more importantly, the quality of ads are important. I don't want the heart racing pills on the website just because we're trying to generate a dollar. I want the people in the business who can benefit by reaching the people that come here to read. And if we do that, everybody wins, and we continue to do what we do, which is have fun telling stories about the broadcasting business.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, look into your crystal ball. Tell us what else is in that beautiful bald head of yours. What do you see in the future? What do you anticipate adding maybe down the road for the site or the brand in general?
I mean, the first thing that I know I want to do, and a lot of this is time and place. Like I mentioned, we have to build up the database. That's important. We are doing tech and podcasting. I would expect that will increase as we go. Right now we're coming out on July 15th, and the way I've told this to some key people we've talked to is, look, everybody remembers what all access looked like when it closed. If you've been around the business as long as I have, you probably remember how radio and records looked when it closed. You may not remember how radio and records looked on day one or what all access looked like on day one. And I'm proud as hell of how we look on day one. But where we look in 12 to 18, 24 months, the good news, I'm 50. I've got a lot of years ahead and a lot of energy to do this. I want to tell as many stories and meet as many people in the business as we can. And as you do things and they continue to do well, you continue to make reinvestments in your company and your brand. And so I want the tech content to get better. I want the podcasting content to get better. I eventually see us doing a weekly tech newsletter. And whether that's September, January, we got to figure that out. First and foremost, we've got a news summit right around the corner coming up in the beginning of September. I want to make sure that the news broadcasting industry is taken care of before we start biting off other things. And so we start with music and we start, putting our foot in the water, if you will, with tech and podcasting, but eventually we dive into that pool. Beyond that, we used to do podcasts and video on the site, and we got away from that because at the end of the day, our core, mission is to be the best publisher for the broadcasting industry that we could be. Down the road, do we dabble with some of that? Maybe. A lot of it's going to come down to ideas and, whether or not we think there's enough of an audience there. The other part of that is I don't want us to spend so much time on that we take our eye off the ball of what we're really known for and what people like. And so, look, a lot of these things, the other part of this, Dave, look at what TikTok's become in the last few years. 5 years ago, TikTok wasn't what it is now. Artificial intelligence wasn't what it is now. There will be something else that will come up in the next 2-3 years. And when that comes, it's our job to be on it and make sure that we're providing coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. As we wrap up, any final thoughts on what you want to tell folks about barrettmedia.com and why you're doing it?
I mean, look, the first thing I would just ask is if you like staying informed on the media industry happenings, the news, the perspectives, we have a lot of really good opinionated columnists who've got industry experience here. I would just ask you, go onto the site, click the newsletter tab, sign up for a newsletter. It helps us keep our partners taken care of. It keeps the people that are producing content feeling that it's worthwhile because you guys are reading it, right? The second thing, share some feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't. One thing, I know this drives you nuts because we're in the news gathering business. How many news stories, Dave, do we have to produce and go find ourselves? Well, guess what, guys? There's a tip box right on the main page of the site. If you have something going on, you signed a new contract, you got a job promotion, whatever the story is, click the box, send it over. We can't tell the story. When I mentioned 13,000 stations, we can't be paying attention to everything. We got to have some help too. So if you're involved in something that you think we would cover, reach out and tell us what's the worst that's going to happen. We say no. So those are the two things. The third thing, the B&M Summit I mentioned, that's a big deal. We've got an awesome group already. I've got some other big announcements forthcoming, which I'm really pumped about. And so if you're in the news broadcasting business, I hope you've got DC on your radar for early September. And then the last part, Dave, I hate, I'm so focused on content most of the time that you don't want to feel like you're trying to sell people. But here's the bottom line for anyone who works in the business and represents a company that has the ability to market, that is targeting broadcasters. How are we not on your radar? We literally reach every decision maker. We reached over 2,000 people are in our database alone that are in the advertising agency side. Okay, everybody thinks it's just a program director and radio host. Guess what, guys? We got TV, advertising, tech people. We have a lot of people in our system. But, sometimes because the broadcasting business isn't always the quickest to respond and take care of the broadcasting business, we have to like fall on the sword and beg, right? Well, look, guys, we have a brand that delivers. We wouldn't be at this spot right now, 9 years in, if it wasn't working. So if you're out there and you're watching this and you do represent a brand that could benefit by reaching broadcasters, reach out. Let's have a conversation. So those are the main things. And then obviously now it's just we got here. Now it's time to execute.